A lot of questions for Ryan Day today about the offensive line. We're talking on Tuesday after the Maryland win, before the Purdue game coming up on Saturday, road game for Ohio State at a place where they've had a lot of trouble over the years. And kind of the crux of the questions today, I thought, were for this offensive line. Ryan Day, I asked, what about other personnel? And he's like, no, they're not there yet. So, like, that second string of guys are not pushing the first string for playing time right now. He doesn't see that. But he also insists that the first string is good enough. He thinks this first string, these 5 guys, are good enough to win games. Andrew, in your mind, where does that leave Ohio State in what has to start happening with this offensive line?
I think that there's a lot of things that have to start happening. You know, I mentioned this on our podcast after the game that I think that there's a way to do this where you don't have to say, you know what, we're just going to keep running the same thing and kind of hope it gets better and hope that these guys kind of figure it out. I think you're going to have to evolve, whether that's quicker passes, whether that's I don't know what I don't know exactly what the fix could be, but it doesn't leave you in a great spot. I thought that Ryan kind of did everything he could to spread the blame around a little bit. You know, he talked about the coaching, he talked about the execution, he said, hey, we've got the talent to do it. Like, to me, that just struck me as a guy who, he knows that there's a problem. He knows that there's a very big problem, but he can't get out there after 5 games and be like, what do you want me to do? Our offensive line is playing terrible right now. You know, we're not doing this, we're not doing that. Like, he can't do that. He's not going to get out there and do that. So I thought he did everything correctly in the way that he approached this and the way that he talked about it. The more illuminating thing to me, and you and I were talking about this, was that the second unit, you know, he mentioned that there's not anybody pushing there because Nathan's been talking about that personnel a lot. There's not anybody pushing, so it kind of sounds like what you've got up front with your starting 5 that has been, knock on wood, healthy so far for the Buckeyes this year. That's what you're going to go with. So there's a lot of different things to work out. Scheme is a person. There's a lot to unpack there, and I think that it's a major problem. But Ryan did everything he could today to just spread as much blame around, or spread the blame around to as many different places as he could.
Frankly, the way that he talked about it reminded me a little bit of the way he was talking about the quarterbacks in the spring, where it was like, if one of these guys wants to step up and win this job, step up and win this job. Step up and prove that you're the guy who's supposed to be playing. And that obviously took them until the start of the season to get that separation. But he kind of is putting that same message out, I think, to this second line, saying there is an opportunity here if you're Luke Montgomery, Tegra Shabola, Zen Mahalski, Enoch Vimahi. Like, there's a lot of guys who could play at multiple positions. The opportunity is there. But the other question I tried to ask him, Stephen, was, you're in the middle of a season. You know, you've got a lot of game plan stuff that has to happen each week. You can't be spending a lot of time on development and skill improvement. Like, you have to spend some time on that. You're trying to get better at every position, but I don't know where that comes from. It's almost like, I guess these offensive linemen are probably going to just have to find some time on their own to make that improvement, because I think the time that's set aside for practice has to be more focused on the opponent that's coming up and those sorts of things. You know, getting this offense going overall than just your basic skill improvement for yourself.
Coaching, scheme, personnel. It's from the Ryan Day Bible. The personnel is not getting fixed today, tomorrow, or any time in the next couple of months. So it's down to coaching and scheme. And really scheme. We talked about that on the Monday pod. Ryan Day got asked a lot of different questions about adapting to that. I looked up some numbers. I was like crunching math for a lot of the time that coaches were talking today. He said 4 yards is the goal on first down. So I looked up the numbers. They're about at like 50% fail rate to success rate in first and second, and they're all over the place, whether it's a pass or it's a run. So that's where my focus is going to be. It's not going to be on, is John Simmons going to get better over the next 7 weeks? Because no, he's not. Probably not. Donovan Jackson,
He could get better. It doesn't mean he's going to get great.
Fair. Donovan Jackson might get better because it's just been weird watching him these first 5 weeks. I think Josh Fryer has been fine. He's just had a few bumps in the road in that Maryland game, but I think he's got some room. Carson Hinsman, as we talked about on Monday, he's got room to get better. And Matthew Jones just kind of is what he is. Him and Donovan Jackson have to play better. Period. They're the veterans on that offensive line. They're the top 100 recruits. They need to play better. Those are the only guys where you can maybe make that challenge right now. The other guys, you got to take them for what they are. So where do you put your focus next? It's on the scheme. How does Ryan Day, how does Brian Hartline, Tony Alford, Justin Fry, how do they adapt to this is your situation? How do you deal with it? Because there is still a way for this offense to be impactful, even if it's not the way we saw with C.J. Stroud and Justin Fields in the past.
Yeah, this offense definitely averaged under 4 yards a carry on first down against Maryland. People can go back and listen to our Monday Buckeye Talk. We had a lot of numbers on there about where it was leaving them in second and third down and some of the adjustments they have to make. And I think you're right. I think this offense, and Ryan Day, I think maybe is coming to this conclusion that there are things he's going to have to do to take this offense in a different way because that route may not be available to him. But I also think that some of this, you can take a similar approach in against Purdue maybe than what you did against Maryland and try to work that out. I'm still very curious what the offensive approach is against Penn State and whether that maybe harkens back to what they did against Georgia in just a more aggressive way to come out and throw the ball more and go right after a team. We'll see. We'll talk a lot more about that on Buckeye Talk and get the text 614-350-3315. As soon as Ryan Day and Jim Knowles were saying it today, it was going right to your phone from Buckeye Talk.